This program is made possible by 46% of non-retirees believe they can't afford to retire. American Senior Benefits agents help retirees find solutions aiding your journey to retirement and financial security. More at wichita.americanseniorbenefits.com. Moving can be stressful. Whether your move is local or long distance, Two Men in a Truck can help. More at twomen.com.
Are you a wartime veteran ages 73 to 85? Did you know there are new rules that may affect your pension? Don't lose out on benefits you deserve. Our team serves you because you served us. Contact Long-Term Care for Veterans today.
Welcome to another episode of Empowering Seniors. I'm Katherine Ambrose, and today we're going to talk about caregivers, family, holidays, and I am with Amy Goyer today. She's a national expert and author brought to us today by AARP. Thank you, Amy, for being here. We're so glad to have you on the show. So if you would share with us a little bit of your background and how it is you became an author and an expert for AARP.
Well, I've worked in the field of aging my whole career. I have a degree in music therapy. I started out as a music therapist in adult daycare centers and nursing homes. And then I worked for the Ohio Department of Aging and administered Older Americans Act programs. And then I worked for AARP full-time for 15 years. And then I quit my job to take care of my parents and moved across the country from Washington, D.C. to Phoenix. But I've been a contractor now for 10 years and a spokesperson for AARP, and I go back and forth between Washington, D.C. and Phoenix.
That's amazing. And I know that you've been on all the national morning shows and have just had a lot of opportunity to put your message out there. And that's what we're hoping to share with our audience today on, especially, this is going to air for the first time kind of about Thanksgiving time. And when families get together, sometimes there are things that are noticed that might be different than the last visit. So could you address that a little bit for us?
Well, from the point of view of the adult children coming in to visit their older parents, look for signs that maybe they might need a little bit more support, some more help in the home, keeping up with things, maybe managing finances. If you're the other viewpoint, if you're the older adult or the senior parent or grandparent, think about your family's coming, and maybe you've been thinking about what your wishes are for the future. Do you want to stay in the home you're living in? Do you want to move somewhere to a senior community or a different kind of living situation, downsize? Think about that. Sometimes over the holidays, it's a good time to have conversations on that, or maybe just introduce the topic. Because you want to have fun around the holidays. You don't want to spend too much time scheduling conversations like that. But sometimes it is the time when you can actually have your children's attention and you can talk about these things. You're really doing yourself a favor if you share what your plans and wishes are, because it's more likely that they will be taken care of. So, do you have your legal issues in place, powers of attorney set up, what's your estate planning? Think about all of those things.
And it might be possible that the adult children have already been kind of wondering about some of that. So by addressing those things that, you probably should share anyway, that can really help the adult kids feel a lot better.
Right. Sometimes it's that elephant in the living room that nobody talks about, you know what I mean? And so, take the first step. And just say, I'm not going to die tomorrow, but I've been thinking about these plans, and here's what I'd like to do. Okay. And here's, I want the role that I want you to play to their children.
Perfect. And we're not even really talking totally about end-of-life plans, but just about creating a future for yourself and making that, making those wishes known. And so it's just kind of the next phase of life, not necessarily the end.
Right, exactly. My dad retired when he was 72. And at that time, they, had worked with their financial planner and their lawyer, and they set up a lot of things. And they wanted to stay in the home they were living in for that period of time. But over time, my dad got, he was caring for my mom who had a stroke when she was only 63. He started developing some issues himself. He eventually did develop Alzheimer's. But he was still very independent and driving. And he just said, I'm tired of taking care of the house, of everything, and I want to move to a senior community. So their plans changed, and that's fine. They lived in a senior community for 3 years, and then they moved back in the house with me. So plans can change, but it's good to have a framework that you go back to. My dad lived till he was 94, so having those conversations at 72 does not mean, as you say, you're right at the end of life.
Exactly, and some people can panic. It might be the adults, or it might be the adult kids that panic just talking about these things for the very first time.
Yeah, you don't want to bring, as from the adult child perspective, you're afraid to bring it up because you don't want them to think that you think they're going to die tomorrow, or your parents, it's a tough subject to bring up. So if the parent brings it up, it's actually usually more comfortable for people. But just be very matter of fact about it. This is just it's just planning for another phase of your life. That's all it is.
Well, that just feels so good to me. Just thinking that it's just the next step.
Yes, exactly.
And that it doesn't have to be such a big deal. And these are kind of ongoing conversations. Maybe not just one big dramatic conversation that changes everything. It's just a continuation of your life as a family, and keeping the conversation flowing.
Don't even try to talk about everything all at once. That's just not realistic. But know that, think about who should be part of those conversations, who's going to react in what way. And when you're thinking about and making plans for the future, think about what roles are different family members going to play? Who's going to be the leader? Or who's going to be better with helping you with finances, or taking care of the house, or, there's so many factors. People even plan for their animals. We have beloved pets that are family members. But have you thought about, if anything does happen to you someday, who's going to take care of that animal?
So what are some of the tips that you'd like to address perhaps to a little wider audience? We'd love to hear that.
Well, there are 40 million family caregivers in the U.S. And they are caring for their parents, their grandparents, their siblings, their spouses, partners. It's just a wide range of relationships. And I've cared for my grandparents, my parents, my sister, my neighbors, it's everyone. And what we find is that caregivers get into a position where they're putting their loved ones first, and they don't take care of themselves as much. So I've learned a lot over the years about what makes this manageable. How do you go through this? Because you don't know, if you get in a caregiving situation, it usually starts, with little things like just calling more frequently, making sure someone's okay, taking them to the grocery store, transportation, but over time it may increase. So my first really important tip to get across is that I learned I can do anything, but I cannot do everything. I can do anything. I mean, you're amazed at the things that you do when you're in a caregiving situation. But I can't do everything. That's not humanly possible.
And it's not for anyone.
No.
No matter what side of the table you're on.
Exactly. It's okay to accept help. So many people are so fiercely independent that they don't want to accept help. It's okay to have help. We're all in this together. So whether you're aging yourself and you're starting to need somebody to mow the grass, it's not the end of the world. You're still very independent in every way you can be. The goal is for people to be as independent as possible for as long as possible.
Very good.
And that's going to change over time. But build your team. And that might mean you just have somebody do the yard work or house cleaning. It might be that you get someone who comes in and helps you with bathing, and that way you're able to stay in your home, but you've made one small change, and that's that person coming in and helping. If you're the caregiver, same thing. You don't have to do this all yourself. You may be caring for your spouse, and you're not taking care of your own health. You're doing all these other things. So get some help for your own life. That's one of my biggest lessons. I found a concierge who helped me sort mail and do all sorts of things because there was just too much to do.
And entrepreneurs, I think a lot of times we're accustomed to leverage and thinking about what systems, people, and tools can help us accomplish all the tasks that we have in our professional and personal life. And that might be different for some family members that find themselves in a caregiving situation. And so the idea to think, how can we be really resourceful and bring other people in that can really help. It doesn't have to be the son that does everything. He doesn't have to be the one that changes light bulbs and does the mowing and everything else. It can be a team. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it might be that your family is the main part of your team, but you can't just rely on family. There are other services. You can go to your community agencies, your area agency on aging. There are local organizations, service organizations that might help with volunteers.
I don't think most families know that all these resources are out there.
Yeah.
And you do have to do a little investigating or reach out to people that can help point you in the right direction, or the organizations. And we have all those organizations here, and they're very active. So that's a good tip. So that's number one.
Number one,
all
yes.
right, what's your second one?
Number two relates to what we were talking about. I have to take care of myself in order to take care of others. Now, I learned this the hard way in my own caregiving experience, that this really happened to me. I went to the gas station and the car was on fumes. There's like almost no gas in the tank, and I was so scared it was just going to break down before I made it. I got there, I filled the car with gas. As I pulled out, I thought, it's amazing. The car actually runs better on a full tank of gas. Well, duh, right? It's got more fuel, it's running better. But that was my aha moment. I am expecting myself to run on empty and be just as efficient. And that doesn't make sense. So it helped me look at it in a very practical way. Because when you're caring for someone, you sort of tend to feel guilty if you take care of yourself. You go out with the girls, or you go to your bridge night, or you go to the movies. That's not selfish, it's just practical. So I look at it as quick things to fill my tank. It might be just a cup of coffee or a hug, or talking to a friend on the phone, doing some jumping jacks, walking around the block. Quick. I always have fresh flowers in the house.
That's so
that
nice.
Fills me up. Think about what nurtures your soul. Then you have to have premium fill-ups, and that's time away from caring for someone.
We want to welcome Michelle Lloyd here at Healthcare Resort, where we're going to continue the conversation about family and family caregivers. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Katherine. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So share with us what it's like to be the caregiver and some of the wisdom you might have when it comes to understanding what the caregiving role is like.
The first bit of advice that I would give is that to ask for help. Sometimes it's very hard for us to say, I can't do this on my own. But caregiving is an extremely difficult job. There's a reason why care facilities have 2 and 3 shifts of nurses. It's not meant for one person to do 24 hours a day. So never hesitate to ask for help.
So what kind of advice would you have for caregivers on how to take care of themselves? We hear sometimes that you can't fill from an empty cup.
Yes.
So let's give the caregivers some tips. And like for spouses that might be taking care of their husband or their wife.
Knowing what's available to you, looking for opportunities to take a break, to step away. Like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So doing things that give you a rest, knowing what facilities that you can look to take breaks, to still travel, to still not only be that caregiver role, but to also be dad to your kids or grandpa to your grandkids as well, or just a person trying to enjoy their own retirement time or their own life as well.
We've had a client recently that used respite care so that they could finish planning a wedding and put the family wedding on. And so tell us what respite means.
Sure. Respite is a break, and who doesn't need a break in our lives, especially when we're caregiving and how hard that job can be. I wish that I had known about respite when I was taking care of my loved ones as well. So respite services come in many different levels. Okay. The two most common levels are going to a skilled nursing facility and staying there short term, so that, like you mentioned, the loved one that was getting ready for a wedding, or I've also seen it used if somebody needs to travel. In that instance, somebody wanted to go to Arizona to go to their granddaughter's wedding, and their loved one couldn't make that trip due to dementia. Mm-hmm. So they were able to find a caring facility to have that person stay at for a long weekend or a week or a month, so they could get away and still fill those other roles in their lives.
How would someone go about finding those kind of respite places?
Well, you're able to get on nursinghomecompare.gov through the Medicare website, and they have a nice star rating, 1 to 5 stars, just like rating your favorite movie.
Okay.
You can see which facilities near you. You can search by zip code, and you can see which facilities near you have that high star rating, so you can start looking at quality facilities. And you can look at skilled nursing facilities that offer 24-hour care if your loved one needs that level. And you can also look at assisted living. So if your loved one doesn't need as intense level of care at a nursing home, then they can stay temporarily at an assisted living as well while you fill those roles in your life.
What would the respite stay be like?
With the respite stay, we offer, and most facilities do offer, room and board, all the necessary amenities. We offer 3 meals a day. We offer physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. We offer an activities calendar that has everything from visiting the casino to having a baking adventure to happy hour. So we get to meet all the needs of the potential resident or our visitor or guest that's staying with us, not just taking care of their health care need. And sometimes we hear quite a bit with our respite residents that they blossom in the social environment, because if you think about it, they've been at home primarily with their caregiver and themselves, and so they come here and they make friends with their table mates, they attend the activities, and they really start to see that they were missing that social component.
And it's something new, maybe exciting and fresh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes too, they take advantage of our physical therapy gym. So maybe they've had some weakness or loss of function in the home, again, from being stuck in that home environment. And so not only are they trying restaurant style meals and going to the spa, but then they're also working out and gaining strength. So sometimes those caregivers return at the end of the respite to pick up their loved one, and their loved one is actually refreshed and doing better and stronger and eating better too.
Well, that's fantastic. So I know that a lot of seniors are interested in being proactive, maybe with nutrition and exercise, and just looking for alternative treatments that might be helpful. So I kind of wonder if they should be curious about physical therapy. Maybe even if it isn't suggested up front, maybe they should ask about it, because I think it could be something that could be really helpful.
It definitely is. And so we offer a lot of non-pharmacological interventions for pain, which is just a fancy way of saying that physical therapy and occupational therapy can help you with pain, so you can do more and move more and maybe not have to take some of those stronger medicines that have negative side effects.
That's awesome, because there's so many great benefits to exercise and physical activity.
Definitely.
So let's talk about rehab then. That kind of leads us right into that. You have a loved one that has to stay in the hospital, and maybe they're not quite well enough to move right back to their home, and they might go to rehab for what kind of time period, and what is that like?
That's another great point, and another great option that seniors have is that, as you said, when they leave the hospital, not all of us are ready to go right back home or bounce back that quickly. So a lot of senior living communities, like the Healthcare Resort of Wichita, offer short-term rehabilitation. Okay. So they could come and stay with us and get their therapies, enjoy our lovely meals and our lovely activities as they get better and back to 100% and back home.
How can we be proactive for ourselves or for a loved one?
That's a great question. And I think the best advice I could give you is to be proactive in that you're looking at senior living arrangements and options before you're in the hospital. Nobody really likes to have that conversation about transitioning to senior living, but know what's around you, know what you like, know what's available to you before you're in the hospital due to an emergency, because then you may only have access to that discharge planner's preferred facilities versus all the facilities in your area. So my advice to you would be to advocate for yourself and your loved one and just know what's available to you beforehand. Shop before.
That sounds like great advice. So you could design a plan, like what if we should move to senior living at some point? What if at some point we just need a little rehab stay?
Right.
What if at some point we need to check in for a little respite and to do your due diligence and check out the different communities or facilities and know where those places might be?
That's exactly right, because being a caregiver is stressful enough, but then having to make a decision when your loved one is in the hospital and you have to make a decision about where to go, that's a very high stress environment. And you don't want to have to fit in tours and shopping and questions at that point when you have a short window of time to make a decision.
Oh, absolutely. And when you have so many other things on your mind and it's just a crisis and urgent situation.
Right.
So it kind of feels almost like kind of just in case pre-booking plans.
Yes, pre-booking.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much. It's been delightful to tour today and learn a great deal about the value of respite and the choices that people have in rehab. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Amy, if you could share with us your third tip.
The third thing to keep in mind is that your mindset is what is going to get you through this experience. We find that 83% of family caregivers afterwards say, overall, it was a positive experience, which is really interesting because when you're going through it, sometimes you are just done. You know, there's so many times when I used to feel like I wanted to dig a hole and hide. It's important to remember that we all choose to be caregivers. You know, you might say, oh, I didn't have a choice because no one else would do it. But the truth is everything we do is a choice. And I know this because I've been in this field 35 years and I've seen many, many people who have no one looking out for them. And it's not because they don't have family. People don't all choose to step up to the plate. So if you're doing this, own that, feel good about it. It doesn't do you any good to feel like a victim. You know, if you can say, okay, I chose to do this. I don't have to do it alone. I don't have to kill myself doing it, but I'm doing this. And I'm going to build a team, and that's empowering as you approach the situation. Think about what you can do, not what you can't do.
And so on the flip side for seniors, what if you're feeling bad because your family isn't stepping up to the plate in exactly the way you think they should, or if you don't have family, because there's a lot of people that are solo aging, and so.
Well, if the first situation, if you feel that your family isn't stepping up the way you'd like them to be, the first thing to think about is, have you really asked them? Have you been clear about what you need? Too many times family communication is so complicated, and you know, there are traditional roles that people play. And you need to think about, okay, have I really sat down and said, I really need help with this. I'm still very independent in many ways, but this is one thing I need help with. You have to be very clear about it. And you have to be adaptable and flexible because, you know, everybody's got busy lives, but don't feel guilty about asking for help. That's what families do. You take care of them, they take care of you. I think that's such an important thing to keep in mind. And then your second scenario of if you're alone, this is where planning really, really is important. So looking forward, and have you done your financial planning? How am I, you know, what are my options in the future? And it's not enough to just say, oh, I'm not going to have any money. Then find out what services and benefits are available to you, because you can still get support and help from many community agencies and public benefits, et cetera. So do some planning with a financial advisor, and also think about the legal issues. Who is going to be that power of attorney for you? You can hire someone to play that role. There are geriatric care managers that play that role for people. So think about how you're going to build out that team without family.
Very good. All right. And so tell us a little bit about your book. Who's the book for?
The book is really targeting family caregivers and older adults who think that they may need some help in the future. It's really a good book to read so that you are prepared for the future and in case you're going to need help at some point. And it might be you're caring for a spouse or your grandparents or your grandchildren, and you don't know what your situation is, but try to get a feel for those things. And I cover how do you assess the situation, how do you deal with health care and legal issues and financial issues. I cover caring for someone who's living at home and if they're living in a facility, because that's even more complicated.
Okay.
And most importantly, I cover building your team, taking care of yourself, and I have a chapter on the end of life and a chapter on life after caregiving, which is what I'm going through now. My parents now have both passed away, and you don't think about planning for that time and preparing yourself for that. But when you wrap yourself around caring for others, it's a huge change in your life. And so I'm kind of figuring that out and refocusing my life. I just want to leave you with one more thought. And this is that life knocks you down sometimes. And I learned this so intensively over the past 10 years of caring for my parents and my sister. What I find is that, the waves are going to come along and they're going to knock you over sometimes. You're going to get sick, or you're going to have an injury, or your loved one is going to have a downslide, whatever it is. And the thing that I realized that being successful as a caregiver, caring for others, caring for myself, it doesn't mean never falling down. It doesn't mean that those waves can't knock you down, because they will sometimes, or they'll take you to your knees, but you get back up. And I had to reframe for myself success, and success is being resilient. It's just getting back up and walking alongside your loved ones and being there for each other. And that is success in life. So just learn to ride those waves. And, life is good overall.
That's perfect. And there's so much truth there.
There's so much joy.
That's true.
And caring for others. So don't miss the joy when you're focusing on the challenges.
Just rebound.
Live it. Yes.
That's perfect. Well, thank you, Amy. You've been a delightful guest. And I think a tremendous help to the people that are watching, and so we're thrilled to have you here. And thank you for watching Empowering Seniors, and we hope to catch you next time.
This program is made possible by 46% of non-retirees believe they can't afford to retire. American Senior Benefits agents help retirees find solutions aiding your journey to retirement and financial security. More at wichita.americanseniorbenefits.com. Moving can be stressful. Whether your move is local or long distance, 2 men in a truck can help. More at 2men.com.
Are you a wartime veteran ages 73 to 85? Did you know there are new rules that may affect your pension? Don't lose out on benefits you deserve. Our team serves you because you served us. Contact Long-Term Care for Veterans today.